Jesus always responds, feed my sheep. Love for Jesus, it manifests itself in care for others. Jesus said, take care of my sheep. The third time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him a third time, do you love me? And he said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my sheep. Jesus asks Peter 3 times, do you love me? Each question, it peels back this layer of shame. Each answer recommissions him. Jesus is re-emphasizing in this gentle, loving way that Peter does belong. He still has a place in Jesus' ministry. The response that Jesus gives, feed my lambs or feed my sheep, it's this reference of Jesus talking, asking Peter to lovingly care for, to pastorally lead Jesus' followers. When Jesus responds each time with feed my lambs or feed my sheep, take care of my sheep, Peter isn't just forgiven, he's restored to purpose. There's this intriguing wordplay that happens in these questions, though, that we miss when we read it in English. There's this wordplay in the Greek text, and I want to show you what this looks like. We're going to put a little graph up here, verse 15, 16, and 17. The first two, Jesus uses this Greek word agape, and the last one, there's this word phileo. Now, I want to put this, follow me on this, okay? I want to put this distinction here. Jesus spoke Aramaic. Aramaic was the common language spoken in everyday first century in Jesus' context. But the Gospels, this text here, is written by these eyewitness accounts of Jesus, his disciples. They're written in Greek, a different language than Aramaic. It's a completely different language. They were written in Greek to reach a wider audience. And Greek was the popular language used for writing, for trade, for cross-cultural communication. Agape and phileo are 2 different Greek words for love. It's likely that Jesus had this conversation in Aramaic, though, and used the more common singular word for love, similar to love in the English language. Now, I just really want to differentiate this because it's important to recognize that John, the writer of this gospel, though Jesus likely didn't use the words agape and phileo here, I'm going to define those in a minute, these different words for love, even though Jesus likely didn't use these exact words, the writer of this gospel account, John, he's making this stylistic decision in how he records this interaction, this conversation, because he wants to illustrate something very theologically significant about Jesus. John uses these 2 words, agape and phileo. Agape means it's this type of love that it's a representation of God's deep, sacrificial, divine love. Love in the purest sense, the sacrificial, divine love that comes from God. Phileo is this more affectionate, brotherly love. It's this genuine, but it's more relational than sacrificial. Notice how Jesus, in these first 2 questions here, John records Jesus' words as using this agape love. Peter, do you agape me? Do you love me with this divine, deep, sacrificial love? And Peter responds, I phileo you, this brotherly, affectionate love, a slightly different meaning. Jesus starts by asking for a deep agape love, but Peter, still mentally swirling in his failure, replies with phileo, I love you like a brother. On the 3rd time, Jesus meets Peter where he is and uses phileo. Jesus meets us at our level, even when we can't rise to his. Peter may be honest about the limits of his love, but Jesus still entrusts him with his mission. Each time he lovingly responds to Peter, feed my sheep. The love that Jesus often requires, notice it's not a love that asks these questions where Jesus might have said, will you never fail me again, Peter? Will you work hard to make up for it? Will you show others that you're still worthy? He doesn't ask those. He asks, do you love me? It's not performative. It's personal, and yet it calls for a very real response, because each time Jesus asks that, Peter says, yes, I love you. Jesus replies, then feed my sheep. Not to earn love, but because real love, it overflows into intentional response. I want to pose the same question to you and I today. I think it's helpful to put ourselves in Peter's shoes. And so this is the challenge that I want to leave for us today. And it's simple. It's the same question. Do you love Jesus? And I have some thoughts, some notes here of what this practically looks like in light of what we just read. The type of love that Jesus models, and just sitting on the beach with them having breakfast, it's this relational love. It starts from being with Jesus, not doing for Jesus. We're going through this amazing study right now with a lot of folks from our church called Practicing the Way. The way is being with Jesus, not doing for Jesus. It is that, but it starts with being with Jesus. Loving Jesus is rooted in grace. It's receiving God's grace, understanding and receiving God's loving grace, and modeling that same grace to the people around us. Peter's failure doesn't disqualify him. In fact, it prepares him for very real love, the type of love that Jesus has to offer. Jesus' love, it's not expressive, it's expressive, it's not performative. It bears fruit, but it isn't driven by fruit. And when we say fruit, it's this idea that we talk about in church all the time, the things that are produced in our life that model and reflect Jesus, things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness. Boy, do we need more of that one in our world. Self-control. Do we express those things, not performing them just to check them off a box? And lastly, it's tied to responsibility. Jesus always responds, feed my sheep. Love for Jesus, it manifests itself in care for others, not just in abstract feelings or words. It's easy to say, yeah, I love you, or to my husband, I love you, or my kids, I love you. I show that in manifested ways in my life. I want to close with two of my favorite scriptures that talk about God's profound, profound love for us. In John 15, same writer of Jesus' life, he records this of Jesus' words. My command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. And earlier on in John chapter 3, perhaps one that you're familiar with, says, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe in him stands condemned already, because they have not believed in the name of God's one and only Son. This is the verdict. Light has come into the world. I love the ending of that. Light has come into the world. When Jesus died on the cross and then resurrected and appeared to his disciples, Jesus is bringing a type of light and hope that the world had not yet ever seen, that only existed way back in the garden before sin and suffering and death entered. Jesus is reintroducing this because Jesus is restoring and reclaiming and rebuilding creation. And the most pinnacle of creation, the most important, you and I. Jesus is redeeming, reclaiming, and restoring our stories, just like he was Peter. And Jesus is inviting us to step into experiencing that same kind of love and offering that same kind of love to the people and places around us.